everything seemed impossible. It seemed like darkness. And then after that, I realized that I was going to be the one that's going to open these doors, going to open these windows to allow light to come through and give me a life back.
I sat down with renowned chef Tony Hyde, and we discussed his memoir, The Day Racism Walked in My Door.
What was the experience of writing the book?
Oh my God, it was more than a mystery. It was more than a challenge, because many nights I would sit there trying to write this book, fall asleep at the computer. Next morning I wake up, or next night when I check it, I would write so many things that I don't even remember what I wrote. Then I would have to try to piece everything together. So it was a challenge.
Why was it important to write the book?
It was almost like purging myself of this demon that had held me captive for so long. So I had to write it, because if I didn't do it, it would be something that's constantly nagging me and telling me I need to get this out.
What do you want people to get out of the book?
I want people to realize that as immigrants, we should not allow people to constantly look down on us, because we have so much to offer.
How old were you when you came to the United States?
14. I was 14 years old.
And you came through New York City?
New York City. Me and my brothers and sisters and my mom. My mom was like a mother goose that brought all her chicks.
What was it like making that transition from 14 years old from Jamaica to New York City?
Well, one of the things I described my foot in the book as a cheap popsicle, or a 10-cent popsicle, because waiting at the bus stop trying to go to school or come from school, my foot was completely ice, was completely frozen. I wasn't used to that. I'm used to walking in Jamaica where it's 85 degrees, you know. All of a sudden now it's 30 degrees and snowing and 20 degrees, and yeah, it was quite a big transition. I think my love for the restaurant business came when I was about 17, 18, you know. Whatever little money we had from working, decided to open like a little small pool hall and serve simple little things, you know? And I loved it from there. It didn't last long. I think it lasted probably 6 months because of lack of experience and lack of money also. But at that point, I got a taste of what it's supposed to be like. I moved to Florida when I was about 28. But by this time, I had opened up a bigger place. I went to work for an electronics company after I went to school. Got a degree for electronics, and did that for about 3 years, save all my money, and decided to purchase a cab, drive a cab, save my money, open a little place, and then I started to cook again. So after I was about 28, I sold that place, moved to Florida, and opened the first Jamaican restaurant that I owned in West Palm Beach, Florida.
What do you like about having a restaurant?
My greatest love is when I see a plate come back to the kitchen and it's empty. Or a customer called me and said, "Man, that's the greatest food, or the best food I ever eat." That is joy to me, you know?
Okay, so you're in Florida, you have this restaurant, and then trouble happens.
Trouble happens, yeah. I was driving on the freeway, which is the major freeway in West Palm Beach, Florida, 95. So as I'm driving, I was in the middle lane and realized my exit was coming up. So basically I put my signal on, I remember that, and I merged over to the right. But as I merged over to the right, I realized there was a green truck, pickup truck. Not close enough that it's gonna cause interference, that this person had to jam on the brake or anything. But I merged over and I basically exit almost right away. So as I was exiting, I realized these guys were bending their head, looking at me. Never realized anything or never took nothing of it, but I kept going. And probably within a week or less than a week, I noticed there's a green truck parked in the parking lot by my restaurant, but Again, I didn't pay attention, you know. After probably 3-4 days, I realized, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. It's the same truck. A week go by, and I'm in the kitchen one day cooking, cutting up plantains. So my guys that setting up the front of the restaurant came to the kitchen and said, you know, there's someone knocking on the door, and you know, these guys are wearing green. At that point, I assume it's the sheriff department because I had a lot of sheriffs that would come to eat, a police department from West Palm Beach that would come to eat. So I said, open the door. This was about 10:30 before we opened. So the minute he opened the door, I could hear these guys yelling my name. So as I was in the kitchen cutting up some plantains, I had a knife in my hand, cutting the plantains. I didn't know what was going on. So almost immediately I walked through the door. As I walked out the door, I had the knife in my hand looking. The reaction from these guys was, he's got a knife, drop the knife. So instantly I had guns in my face, you know? And right away,
You're your chef.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your tool.
That's my tool, but I could have been shot because of the simple fact that I had a knife in my hand, but I had no idea what was going on. So I put the knife down, dropped it as a matter of fact, and instantly they put a handcuff on me and started to ransack the restaurant, you know, going through refrigerator doors, everything that they could. And, you know, two guys that was working with me was from Haiti. And of course, these guys got the brunt of it also. They were verbally abused and, you know, questioned extensively. How did they get to this country? All these different things. Eventually, they found my gun that I had purchased legally in Florida and receipt. So, of course, they basically took the gun. I was put in their vehicle. And, oh, by the way, they also went into my car and practically destroyed the interior of the car, hoping to find something, I'm not sure. After that, I was put in their pickup truck and driven to my place where I live, and took the keys from my pocket. They went inside, they went upstairs, unlocked the door, and then rang the bell. So after they rang the bell, my girl came to the door to look through, wearing her underwear, and they opened the door right away, snatched her outside, went inside searching for anything that they could find again. You know, so it was abuse of power. And of course, once they got back to the vehicle, the racism and the racial slur continued all the way until we got back to their border station up in Riviera Beach.
So you were incarcerated for an extended period of time?
11 and a half months. 11 and a half
almost
months.
a year.
Yeah.
What was the complaint?
Well, after 2.5 months, I was taken to Chrome, and they claimed that they wanted to deport me because of the simple fact that I had a minor misdemeanor marijuana charge that was, back in those days, I think they said it was a misdemeanor, you know? And while I was actually in their border patrol station, one of the guys came to the cell laughing and said, you know why you're here, right? You're here because you cut the boss off in traffic. So because you cut him off in traffic, he came to get you. So it was nothing more than a minor traffic infraction. All along for 2 months, they had no charges. When I was at the sheriff department, I had many friends that worked there. And even when I asked them to check to see what the charges were, they would always say, there's no charge. They only put a federal hold on you. So you could not bond out and you could not get out.
So what happened to your business when you were put in jail?
My business that I worked so hard, I think it's over 10 years I worked to created this business. And it was a flourishing business. I had no one that could keep the business going. They were able to keep it going for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think, tops. After that, you know, I basically instructed them just to take everything out that they can take and walk away from it. So everything that I had invested in it was lost at that point.
And also, another situation was being separated from your family.
I describe in the book it was almost like an iceberg sitting in the sun, slowly melting away, because it plays on you emotionally. Financially, you can't do nothing much. So everything that I had saved, I put towards attorneys. I had friends that contributed to my legal defense. So I had 4 attorneys, and none of these guys were able to do anything. While I was there, I would spend a lot of time in the library. My mission was to get out. My mission was to restart my business. My mission was to continue my life, you know? And I was not going to allow anything to take it from me.
Wasn't there like a rumor that you had been deported or you were out of the country?
Yeah.
Or?
The rumor was that I got deported, I went to Jamaica, and I actually hung myself. So fast forward about a year or so later, once I got out of the place, I went to a festival out in Long Beach here in California. And as I was going in through the door, there was one of my customers from West Palm Beach that was coming out. So as she was coming out, we met eye to eye. And instantly, this woman started to shake like a leaf because she could not believe she was seeing me. And this is the person that actually told me this rumor.
Was there a time when you felt like you were going to be there forever?
I wasn't able to smile. I wasn't able to think positive because I felt there was no way out. And especially after I went to the first court appearance, I thought, everything was over. But once I got out of there, my mother was there, my daughter, my friend that's a sheriff. When I look at them, when I embrace my daughter, when I embraced my mother, I realized at that point I was not going to give up. And this is when I said to myself, the fight has just begun. So I believed at that point, 2 months before this, everything seemed impossible. It seemed like darkness. And then after that, I realized that I was going to be the one that's going to open these doors, going to open these windows to allow light to come through and give me a life back. I made some progress, I think, when I was transferred to Key West, because during the time that I was there, it was like from one jail cell to the other, from one place to the other. They would always bus us with so many other immigrants. And I remember when they bused us to Key West, and once I got there, one of the officers said to me, if anyone was treated unfairly or unjustly, we have a form here that we need for you to fill out. Once again, this was God. This was my guardian angel. So he gave me the form. I filled it out, but I never returned it to him. What I actually did, I sent it to my mother. And I asked my mother to please send it to the Justice Department. So she was able to send it to the Justice Department. Not long after that, probably, I'm guesstimating a month or so, someone came down to investigate. So what they had to do, they had to move me from Key West back to Chrome. And then at this point, the investigator told me who she was, and we spoke, and I told her everything that was happening. So prior to this, I had no bond. It was basically, they're gonna deport me, simple, nothing else. After I had the opportunity to speak to this woman, within maybe a week or two, I got a letter that I have a bond for $30,000 to get out. I was broke, I didn't have any. So what I did, I went to the library again to try to figure out how to reduce the bond, because I know there was something that I saw that says bond reduction, So I went in there and I figured it out, and I filled out the form, sent it out, And of course, within, I don't know, time seemed to be weird when you're incarcerated, you know. Anyway, I got a letter back not long after that the bond was reduced to $1,000, okay? At this point, I said, yes, everything is coming my way, you know. So I was able to reach out to friends of mine, and they were able to pay the bond. And this is what allowed me to get out. So my mother and my sister was coming to pick me up. And, you know, when they came, then I basically kissed the ground and removed all the clothes that was given to me and put on some clothes that my mom brought, and we drove away.
When did you decide to relocate to Los Angeles, and why Los Angeles?
I had a vision that I couldn't stay there in Florida. My brother was here in California, and, you know, I went to New York for a little bit and then came out here. And once I got here, I said, this is the place I'm gonna settle. The restaurant that it took me from, the interior color was white, blue, and orange. When I first walked into this place, the same color. It was white, blue, and orange. If this is not God moving me in a parallel direction, I don't know what it is, but I know so many times I have to give God thanks. I was working for Whole Foods Market, you know, and working for Whole Foods, I worked there for about 6 years, doing recipes for them. And while I did recipe for them, I was also doing my jerk seasoning, and I was selling it to different restaurants. So I was selling my jerk seasoning to this lady that owned this place. And after a while, she said to me, do you want to buy the restaurant? And I said, no. She asked me again probably a couple of weeks later, and I said, no, I really don't want it. She asked me again. So 3 times I turned it down. And after the 4th time, I decided to take it. And the reason why I took it was because I developed a bracket at Whole Foods Market for them to use in their refrigerated case. And once I develop it, instead of paying me for it and allow me to benefit from it, they say, wow, this works so good. So now that it works so good, we own the patent to it, so you cannot make any more. I said, oh my God, this is unbelievable, you know? So once that happened, I decided I just couldn't stay there any longer. So after the 3rd time, when I didn't accept the restaurant, the 4th time, I said to her, I'll take it. So she was so happy to get rid of it also, because it was bad reviews, and I'm not gonna knock whatever else, but it was, you know, it's what it is.
So you had to kind of revive the restaurant.
I had to revive it. And one of the worst thing a customer said, or a potential customer said, he said, I would rather to eat the leather from my shoe than to eat the food from that restaurant. But what I had to do, the first thing I had to do, I had to get a sign, a banner put over the sign to cover the sign to let people know I'm a new owner. And one day I had a woman from the LA Times, and she came in and ate, and she loved the food. You know, I had no idea who this person was. She came back a week later with 3 other people. They sat down, they ate, and they're like, oh my God, this is so good. Can we do a story on your restaurant? And, you know, that's when I knew who she was. And I said, yes. So she did this story on the restaurant, and the day before she ran the story, she called me and she said, listen, you're gonna be busy. I'm gonna run the story tomorrow. And I said, it's okay, I can handle it. She said, no, you don't understand. You're gonna be busy. I said, wow. Anyway, I got here at 7 o'clock that morning. Normally I would get here at 9. And I got here at 7 o'clock, and the phone was ringing nonstop. What time you open? What time you open? So by the time I got everything organized, it was me and one other person in the kitchen and the front of the house person. So at about 10:30, I look outside, and there was a line going around the building. So the minute we opened the door, everybody ran right in, grab a seat. So in like 5 minutes, the place was full. You know, we was able to get everybody served. When I walk out, everybody stand up to basically give me a standing ovation because they said the food was so good. So it was, it was a blessing again, because without this review, I don't think it would have moved that fast. Eventually it would have moved, but this was like the fuel that set the rocket to a different direction.
Also, you have a lot of Jamaican groceries
Yes.
and hard to find items
Right.
that you bring, and you've kind of built like a little bodega here.
Right.
What are the things that you offer? What are the most popular things that you sell?
I think the most popular thing right now has to be this Scotch bonnet pepper sauce. We have the ginger beer. We also have simple things like ackee. Well, I shouldn't say simple. That's basically things that people cannot get in other places. So we have ackee. We have cocoa bread. We have the patties. And of course, we have an amazing selection of food.
Now, your place is an omnivore spot. My channel basically is vegan.
Right.
But you do offer a lot of cutting edge vegan items.
Absolutely.
And why don't you explain maybe a little bit about what you offer in the vegan menu?
Right. Well, I do my best to do from the basic, which is maybe a vegan vegetable, which is a jerk vegetable or a curry vegetable or a tropical vegetable. Then we offer also a vegan curry chicken and a vegan jerk chicken, a vegan mango chutney chicken. Now, the thing about the vegan oxtail is not soy-based, but the chicken are soy-based, but it's vegan. Then I don't add sugar to the food. Most restaurants, you throw some sugar in something and it's gonna taste good. I don't, So I do my best to add nothing but simple things. I don't use some seasoning that's pre-manufactured, like seasoned salt, because these things often has MSG. And again, I try to stay away from things that's not necessarily good for your body.
And I was in the kitchen watching you cook, and the other thing that inspired me was everything you make is like pretty much from scratch.
Yeah.
Yes. and that's a lot of work, but it's all made from scratch.
Yes, and it's made from love, because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to do it. So you have to walk in with the right attitude, the right mindset. Many years ago, I remember I saw a commercial. And this guy woke up in the morning and he was like, "Oh, time to make the donut." I don't wake up with that mindset. I wake up with a positive attitude, knowing that it's mine, knowing that it's what I put in, I'm gonna get out. Because if I don't put in the right attitude, if I don't put in the right energy, if I don't put in the right love, you're not gonna get nothing more than disaster.
This is your book here, The Day Racism Walked in My Door. So you can get this book on Amazon?
Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
Yes. And, again, like I said, this took me many years to do. It has been, more than 12, 15 years that I was trying to write this book. But I was so determined not to give up on this project. I needed to get it done. I needed for people to read it, because it's gonna make you laugh. Some part, it may make you cry, because I got emotional many times talking or telling people my story. So you may get emotional reading it. But the thing is, it shows that you should never give up. It shows you that there's always a way to make it. As long as you're determined, you're gonna make it. You may not necessarily reach as far as you want to go, because they say sky's the limit, but even if you get up to the clouds, give thanks. Yeah.